Hey guys, Manic Mercurian here, and in this video I'd like to cover the astrology for Tuesday, September 21st through Monday, September 27th. And this week is notable for two main reasons as far as I can see. One is we do have the fall equinox, and so the sun will move into the sign of Libra, and we will begin fall in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, there will be the spring equinox, and they'll be moving into spring. And so the whole world will experience 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness on this special day, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. The other reason why this week is notable is because Mercury will turn retrograde on the 27th. And so this marks, this is the last week of the pre-shadow, kind of gearing up for Mercury retrograde. And so, yeah, it's going to be an interesting week. So let's just get into it here. So first, we start out on Tuesday, September 21st. And, we've got Sun is at the very last degree of Virgo. Say goodbye to Virgo season. We're about to begin Libra in just a moment here. And we've got Mars kind of going through the first several degrees of Libra. Mercury is already, it appears to be closing out the end of Libra, but it's about to turn retrograde. So yeah, we've got, kind of these fall energies right now going on here, although technically it's the last day of summer. But yeah, there's no exact planetary aspects. Really, we're just kind of winding down from the full moon. The moon has just sort of entered Aries, and so it's sort of giving us this kind of warm and energetic come down since the moon is in Aries, but still it's a come down. The moon is losing light now as it gets farther away from the full moon, which is at the end of Pisces. And so we're still feeling that kind of that energetic rush that we felt on Monday from the full moon, and things are beginning to dissipate just a little bit. We're still kind of vibing a little bit high right now, a little bit energetic, some frenetic energy going on, but we're beginning to cool off just a tad bit. And let's go forward to Wednesday the 22nd. So speaking of cooling off, we do have Sun entering Libra. And I do cater mostly toward the northern hemisphere since that's where most people, including myself, live. So we are beginning fall here, and like I said before, this is notable for multiple reasons. So the equinox is one of these important days where portals open up, if you want to really think about it that way. It's a good time for manifestation, or for thinking about your intentions and like kind of resetting what your intentions are, and sort of the point of setting your intention is to manifest it and to sort of plan accordingly. And so with this beginning of a new season, the energies change and they allow us to kind of go into this new chapter where we can start a little bit fresh and kind of, reset our intentions and manifest them. So, this is kind of what's going on here with the equinox. And then also we're moving into Libra. So things lighten up a little bit. Things can be a little bit heavy, with the earth elements, which can be grounding, but can also be heavy. It can be a little bit dark. So with the sun entering Libra, we now have 3 of the inner planets in Libra with Sun, Mars, and Mercury there now. So things are a little bit light. Libra is a multifaceted sign. Happy birthday, by the way, to all the Libras. We are in Libra season now. But yeah, there's kind of a lot that goes on in Libra. So Libra opposes Aries. Aries is much simpler to understand. Maybe we'll just start there. Aries begins spring, so it's all about beginnings. Libra is opposing Aries, so it is a beginning, but it's beginning fall, which is about an ending, sort of. It's about beginning in a way which actually cools things down. It allows us to reflect more. Libra is a very reflective sign. It has the scales, so we're sort of weighing things. And Libra can be very stoic. It can be very detached. It's one of only 2 signs that are they have emblems or images that are just an object. And Aquarius is usually the water bearer, so even Aquarius would be a person. So Libra is really the only sign that is sort of just so detached that it's represented by an object. So we can be very detached, and that can allow us to observe and to weigh things and to study. Libra can be a studious sign. But Libra is also very social and playful as well. Libra is ruled by Venus, and so we can also be, Libra can be surprisingly romantic. It can be surprisingly detached and sort of bittersweet, but it also has a romantic side to it as well. It's, again, like I said, it's a multifaceted sign, and so we can be sort of detached, but also, craving relationship, not only romantically, but also just socially, thinking about our friendships and our social connections. So these are kind of the themes that are brought up with Libra. And especially at the beginning of a sign, you really get that kind of punch, that kind of strong energies unfolding since we're beginning this chapter now. Also, on this day of Wednesday, September 22nd, we do have Mercury squaring Pluto. Mercury's at 24 degrees Libra, squaring Pluto at 24 degrees Capricorn. On this chart, I just happened to capture this T-score with the moon, but the moon is traveling so quickly, we won't really focus on that. But yeah, Mercury making the square with Pluto. So really, this is a week-long, if not more so, even if not longer, aspect, because, like I said, Mercury is preparing to turn retrograde. So Mercury is actually not traveling quickly anymore at all. Mercury has slowed down to the point where it's basically at a standstill, and it's about to turn retrograde at 25 degrees Libra. So we're going to experience this square with Pluto for a while. So we really may be thinking twice about our relationships and our social connections, or maybe just about everything in general. Libra is mostly focused on relationships, but it not only weighs the pros and cons of relationships, but it weighs everything. It is a contemplative sign. It's it being detached and sort of removing oneself from the picture allows you to gain insight and clarity on what it is that you're analyzing. So we may be much more analytical now, in a very detached, sort of passive way. And with Pluto involved, this is a very heavy energy, Pluto and Capricorn. So what we're thinking about now does have consequences, and it has far-reaching consequences for the future. It's very Saturnian. Capricorn and Libra both have a Saturnian side to them. So yeah, things may be a little bit heavy with this kind of background development that has formed with Mercury making this conversation with Pluto. We are wanting to be kind of playful and romantic at times with people, or just to, Libra's kind of just about enjoying bouncing your energy off of other people and enjoying that whole dynamic. And there is a playfulness to that, but at the same time, we're thinking about these kind of heavy, long-term consequences as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind. That's a little bit of a heavier background energy. Going forward to Thursday, the 23rd, Venus is at 15 degrees Scorpio, and it does oppose Uranus at 14 degrees Taurus. So just earlier in the day, I'm a little bit late in the day right now, but earlier in the day, we have Venus at 14 degrees Scorpio making that opposition. And so with this opposition, we have Scorpio and Taurus. This is the axis of possession and finances to some extent. It's about resources, and especially with Venus, which kind of rules abundance and resources to some extent. Also our relationships, we're really there may be a sudden change or development involving our resources and our commitments. We may have committed ourselves to something which has changed, or maybe it is us that has changed, and we may have to reevaluate our commitments, whether it be financially or socially, romantically. What have you what are in your possession? That's sort of what it's about, is possession. So are you in someone else's possession of sorts, or someone in yours? Or, do you have finances or obligations that are like stocks, things that you're sort of planning on or investing in, things that you have that are resources to you, but it's not just about the current moment. It's about your resources that you've projected into the future. That's why I say investments, not only like literally in like terms of like finances and stocks, but also, have you invested yourself in your relationships? And are there changes that need to be made? I'm not saying necessarily that we all need to like end our relationships or, completely abandon what we've invested in, but we may need to alter things or tweak things. We may need to maybe begin or end things, especially if you have planets here around the middle of Taurus or Scorpio. You may need to very dramatically change what you've obligated yourself to. But for the rest of us, I would say maybe we just kind of need to think over things, especially with, I think that's kind of the, what's the word, like the key word or the phrase of the week is like kind of rethinking everything. I mean, that's very literal with Mercury turning retrograde, but also with all this Libra energy. We've become much more detached since Virgo. I think Virgo is analytical, but it's more in the moment. It's more doing things. It's more involved. With Mercury retrograde and with Libra, we're more detached, we're more separate, and we're more just observing everything. So with this opposition between Venus and Uranus, I would say there's this change to our resources, and that can feel scary. Change can feel scary. Also, sudden change on things that we were relying on. Yeah, that could be scary, but invite it, invite it with open arms. Hopefully I can speak. Yeah, welcome it with open arms is what I'm trying to say, because with this change can always be good, especially if you embrace it. How can you capitalize on this change? Because you can see every instance like this as an opportunity. And so perhaps something that you thought was going to be one way for a long time has suddenly changed. How can you quickly adapt? Scorpio wants us to adapt very much so. And that's where Venus is. So how can you quickly adapt and rethink, reorient yourself, reorient your relationships or your commitments in order to capitalize on these new set of circumstances that have emerged? Uranus can cause us to have realizations. Sometimes that's the shocking thing that has changed. Maybe nothing has really physically changed in your life or with your commitments, but maybe your outlook is the thing that has changed. Maybe you've learned something or figured something out. And so even that can almost be distressing, because once you've figured something monumental out, what do you do with that? You then have to change your circumstances because they no longer fit you. You've outgrown them, like a snake shedding its skin. I feel like these are all great metaphors for Scorpio and Taurus to some extent. So this is sort of what's going on. It's nothing super major, but it is definitely worth noting. And let me see here. Yeah, by the next day, Venus is already going forward and moving ahead. So on Friday the 24th, we do have the moon going over Uranus, sort of lighting up that aspect again. So, those changes which may have suddenly emerged on Thursday the 23rd, we may be still kind of really experiencing them on Friday. But hopefully by then we've been able to adapt a little bit. With Uranus, things are very quick with Uranus. With Uranus, everything will be very slow, very stable for a long time, and then suddenly dramatically change. And especially with Venus in Scorpio, which is lighting up this energy, Scorpio is all about change. It's a fixed sign, but it's fixed water, and water is always changing. So it's fixed on change. It's set change. It's almost changing so constantly that the fact that it is changing is what is the constant. The fact that it is constantly evolving is the only constant. And so with this energy, it asks of you to respond quickly and to orient yourself. But again, like I said, maybe it's you that was changing dramatically in the first place that really set all this off, and that's something to consider as well. Okay, let's move forward to Saturday, September 25th. We do have Mars. Where's Mars? At 6 degrees Libra, trining Saturn at 7 degrees Aquarius. So this will become exact later in the day. Let's see here. But yeah, this is interesting. So we have Mars in detriment in Libra. And like in the last video, I described how we may be less prone toward direct assertiveness. So Mars in Libra doesn't necessarily want to be direct. It doesn't want confrontation. It wants to maintain harmony. Maybe it wants to fight for harmony or for peace. And maybe it wants to fight in sort of covert or subdued ways, if that makes sense. So there's that energy, but then this is making a trine, a sort of strong connection with Saturn in Aquarius. So maybe we're able to really make some connections which will aid our long-term plans, and that's part of Libra as well. Is Libra just sort of being playful and having fun, or is it being strategic and trying to make connections that will help it in the long term? Really, it's both. You can't have one without the other. And so with Mars and Libra, maybe you're just kind of being yourself, being sociable, and that will naturally through the process of osmosis, by being social, allowing your ideas and your energy to connect and bounce off of the ideas and energy of others, you will naturally find the people that will have similar beliefs or similar worldviews, or maybe similar goals or intentions as yourself. And so that's where you kind of can incorporate some of these more long-term, more futuristic themes of Saturn and Aquarius, where by simply being yourself and allowing yourself to connect with others, you find the people who you can each kind of help to shape each other's lives in a very long-term way. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but I do think maybe I see this as happening kind of incidentally or accidentally. I suppose it could be strategic. I suppose you could use this strategically and be simply networking and trying to make these long-term connections. But, really there's something kind of spontaneous about the air signs. There can be something sort of scientific and deliberate as well. But air signs are all about kind of just observing and interacting and experimenting. And so really I see this as just a natural form of finding, doing something which ends up contributing to your long-term goals, but in a way that's kind of playful and involves cooperating with others. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's move forward to Sunday, September 26th. Let's see here. So there's no exact aspects. We do still have Mars at 7 degrees trining Saturn, so we still have that theme of connecting with others, contributing to a future with others that we each want. Having because that's what you really learn in Aquarius, is that if you have these goals which you've created in Capricorn, you're going to need to cooperate with others in order to achieve those, and by doing so you inadvertently do the same thing for others as well. So we've still got these themes going on here, but otherwise Mercury is very much stationary at this point, and so the themes represented by Mercury will be strengthened as Mercury comes to a standstill and intensified. So we may be very critical of our relationships, or maybe just critical in general, because it's this sort of intense method of observation. We're just really, being so detached can almost be scary, especially scary for others, because you're not, you can just slip through everyone's fingers, and you're not able to be, if you're not a part of things, then people can have a hard time understanding you. There's many pros and cons, but if we're also so kind of detached and just kind of contemplating, it can almost be intimidating because you're out of reach. But at the same time, it can be sort of peaceful, if we're all just observing and rethinking. There can be something very productive and very peaceful about thinking before you act. But then again, on the other hand, there can be something, not productive if we're, you can think too much and not quite act yet. And right now, this whole process that I'm doing right now as I speak is very Libran. Mercury's in Libra right now. And so it's this back and forth, yes, no, pros, cons, should I do it or should I not do it? It's this whole mentality that I'm sort of demonstrating, that this is exactly what's happening in Libra season, especially with Mercury turning retrograde now. We're just sort of weighing the pros and cons of everything, observing, analyzing, and contemplating. And I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion anytime soon. This is only about to be the beginning of Mercury retrograde. And so really we have a whole lot of stuff that's happened over the past couple of weeks that we really haven't even begun to fully integrate yet. And so, again, like I said in the last video, I wouldn't say right now that we should have all the answers or that we should expect ourselves to. I think we're about to sort of, begin this very Mercury retrograde type of experience. This very sort of classic Mercury retrograde is about to unfold, where we will very much be reintegrating, rethinking, reorienting ourselves. It's almost so fitting that it's in Libra, because Mercury retrograde is a little bit like Libra anyway, so kind of thinking and going back over things and contemplating and, not being quick to act, being sort of internal. So we're about to sort of begin this whole process here. Do you want to quickly mention, you can see this blue triangle. We've got this sort of grand trine with the Sun and Mars in Libra, and Mercury for that matter, trining Jupiter and Saturn, also making a trine to the North Node and the Moon here real quickly. So, so that does look nice. We have so many air planets just for this, couple days that the Moon is in Gemini, and let's see here. So yeah, that's nice. Trines allow you to feel strong. They create this environment of ease and peace, and everything is just kind of simple and tranquil. And I know nothing I've said in this video so far has been simple, but I think this is a good aspect or configuration to kind of offset all this nuanced complexity and all this baggage in our minds that hasn't yet been dealt with or organized. We do at least have this air grand trine, so that can allow us to enjoy ourselves socially, or enjoy ourselves intellectually, allowing ourselves to learn, or just like air is about bouncing ideas off of other people. But again, it doesn't have to always be the most genius ideas. It definitely can be, but it can also just be gossip. It can be any type of information, and so that's what air is all about. So we can have a little bit of fun here with this sort of grand trine emerging for this couple of days. And you can almost kind of thrive off of I don't want to say mysteriousness, but the fact that there's so much going on and it's a little bit chaotic and so nuanced. You can almost just kind of surrender to the madness and just enjoy the ride or enjoy the show. And that's what I would recommend doing. So, do your best to kind of integrate, but at the same time, the air element teaches us to not take everything so seriously. Because being detached allows you to, I guess, have that benefit of not being invested in anything. You can just kind of sit back and observe and almost watch everything like it's a movie, and yet at the very same time be a part of it as well. And that's the most of what I have. Let's go to the end of this forecast. So on Monday, September 27th, we do finally have Mercury turning retrograde at 25 degrees Libra. And so, I really talked about this already quite a lot, but yeah, this is the beginning of this whole process. And it's all those words, rethinking, reorienting, going back. People say that they want to text their exes, or that their exes randomly text them. It's because we're going back, we're revisiting all these things. We're really reintegrating a lot of what's happened over the past couple of weeks, but also sometimes we're revisiting themes from much farther back. And Mercury retrograde is a time of, technological difficulties, or, things are more challenging, there's more delays, because it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Mercury retrograde is such a great energy for just really going into your own mind and unlocking that intuition, or being creative in a different kind of unique way, allowing yourself to just see. People born with Mercury retrograde can see all these connections that, the rest of us can't really. They can see sort of cause and effect in a sort of different light, or in a different dimension almost. And I don't know, it's very poetic, it's very creative, and it's great for integrating. I always say that, but it's great for you're not necessarily exposing yourself to any new ideas or new information, but you're just sort of reprocessing and really sitting with the information that you've already gained over the past few weeks, or maybe longer, maybe over the past few years. You're just kind of mulling over and digesting and really going over all this information that you've already collected. And there's something beautiful about that, because it's almost done in a very subconscious way. It's not Virgo we're talking about, especially, with Mercury and Libra, where it's not about like sticky notes and like organizing everything and binders. Really, it's almost like digestion, because it just happens naturally. You're just kind of thinking and pondering and just letting your mind wander. And it feels almost lazy, and yet it's so productive at the same time. And again, it's really great for any kind of creativity. If anyone's involved in anything creative, really kind of surrendering during a Mercury retrograde to your creativity or to your intuition is really great. You can access, better material when it comes to art or writing, etc. So yeah, maybe, we won't be quite as productive. Maybe there'll be more delays, but, there's always a pro to every con. We can use this to reintegrate and to be creative, and to sort of allow this more creative and internal side of us to be more active. So that's what I have for this week, and hopefully that made sense. I know that was a little bit rambly again, but I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.